for everyone to log in and join us. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Gopi Janava Girivaradari Janava Mata Girivaradari Jashodanandana Pratajana Ranjana Jashodanandana Pratajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanajari Jamuna Tira Vanajari Jayarata Madhava Jaya Kunjabi Hari Jayarata Madhava Jaya Kunjabi Hari Jaya Gopi Janava Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Janava Jaya Girivaradari Jashodanandana Pratajana Ranjana Jashodanandana Pratajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanajari Jamuna Tira Vanajari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunjabi Hari Jaya Gopi Janava Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Janava Jaya Girivaradari Jashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanajari Jamuna Tira Vanajari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunjabi Hari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Nita Gora Haribo, 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 Nita Gora Haribo, Nita Gora Haribo, 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 Nita Gora Haribo, Jaya Jaya, Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shishi Nitai Sachinandana ki jai. Once again, I just want to say thank you so much for everybody who is joining us here today on Zoom, and also those of you who are participating on our YouTube channel. Thank ISKCON Portland and Jai Sachinandana for giving me this opportunity to speak on this most auspicious day. I'm sure most of you are aware that today is the appearance of Sri Rukmini Devi. And so we're going to be speaking on Rukmini Devi. We're also going to be honoring a most exalted Vaishnav, Sri Janava Devi, whom I'm very excited to speak on because ISKCON Portland is the home of Sri Sri Nitai Sachinandana. And as our hearts have all been captured by Lord Nityananda, how most appropriate it is for us to also be equally captured by the Shakti energy of Lord Nityananda, Sri Janava Mata. So we will be, hopefully, divulging into some nectarian pastimes about both of these personalities. But before we do so, we've already taken a few moments to just establish an auspicious environment. We do this Jai Radha Madhava song. We follow in the footsteps of Srila Prabhupada. Before he gave any discourse or lecture, he would sing this song. And it's always nice to remember why. Why are we doing this? And we take our cartels and we bring our cartels, or if we're making an altar, an offering at the altar, we'll ring our bell. But just remember that these sound vibrations, our cartels, our bells, these are dispelling anything that is inauspicious and inviting in all auspiciousness. And so when we sing this song, we're really setting the mood. We're entering in, we're leaving behind everything that is weighing on our shoulders, everything that is coming into our minds and taking over those moments that we want to be devoting to spiritual topics. And so we just kind of make a huge breakthrough. We sing our Jai Radha Madhava, we invoke the atmosphere of Vrindavan, and then we're going to give honor. I'll recite the Sri Mangalarcharanam prayers. And each of these prayers just invokes auspiciousness and the blessings of an individual personality. If you're not familiar where you can find or read or learn more about these, if you have your Bhagavad Gita, in the introduction, they're there and you can read the translations. And the more that you recite them, the more that they have the opportunity to reciprocate in your life. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to have them reciprocate with us. Om Madhyana Timirandasya Janandana Shalakaya Chakshulun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamala Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagatam Sagana Raghunatam Stam Rajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Parasara Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagapate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavanishvari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamani Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktarvinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you so much. I'd like to recite just one more invocation of auspiciousness. Today, although we're not going to be focusing on a specific verse, all of this information has been passed down through the disciplic succession. And I just want to give honor to Srila Vyasadeva, who has helped compile all of this knowledge and given it to us. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jai. So today we are going to be looking at two personalities, as I mentioned. And the first personality I'd like to speak on is Sri Janava Mata. There is just so much information on this personality. But whenever we speak on a Vaishnava, we speak on the topics of Krishna consciousness, not only do we just want to hear what their pastimes were, what they did, but also I hope that we can become inspired by these pastimes. So the topics that I've chosen to speak on today, I hope we can expound them onto how do we take this example and how do we utilize it in our everyday life so that, you know, so that the reason that these pastimes have been preserved and passed on to us can enliven so that they can stay active. You know, it's not just that we want to learn about these personalities, but that the hope is that we can also be inspired to follow in their footsteps. So Janava Mata is not an ordinary personality by any means. You know, she's not an ordinary jiva. She is the Shakti, the energy of Sri Nityananda, who is none other than Sri Balaram himself. So when we think about this personality, we can think of her as being non-different than Sri Nityananda. You know, just as we cannot think of the sun without the sunshine, we cannot think of Sri Krishna without his consort, Sri Radhika. Of course, today we will ask permission of Sri Radhika to focus on that personality of Sri Rukmini Devi. However, one without the other isn't complete. And so any enthusiasm that we have for Sri Balaram, that enthusiasm is continued into our understanding of who Sri Nityananda Prabhu is. And if we have any love in our heart for Sri Nityananda and Sri Balaram, then that love is incomplete without an understanding of Sri Janava Devi. So Janava Devi has, let me start by expounding that. Sri Balaram had actually two consorts, Varuni and Revati, sisters. And those sisters incarnated into or took birth in Gaura Lila as Vasuda, who is the sister of Sri Janava Devi. And Vasuda was actually the older sister. And it's very beautiful. There's that in this pastime, there are several places where dreams take place. And I really appreciate this because through all of my life and experience in Krishna consciousness, it's always been explained to me that our dreams, when they contain devotional moments, that those should not be taken as ordinary. When the spiritual master, when the Vaishnava, when Sri Krishna takes the time to come to us in the form of a dream, that we should understand that these moments are non-different from reality, that this is Srila Prabhupada, or this is Sri Krishna coming in as themselves to you. So we get this example in the pastimes of Janava Mata. We see that her father actually had a dream, and in the dream he was inspired and instructed that his daughter should marry Sri Nityananda Prabhu. And so there's a whole extensive pastime and how that is communicated, and the Brahmins are sent and the messages are sent back. And of course, Sri Nityananda Prabhu, understanding his eternal consort, is a very willing and ecstatic participant in those pastimes. So it comes to be that Janava's oldest sister first is married, and there's an extremely amazing aspect of this pastime that I wanted to just touch upon, and that is that the marriage of her sister takes place, and the following day she's helping serve. And this topic of service is one that is, when you think of Janava Mata, the first thing that comes to my mind is her example of service. And if you walk away from this day with any other idea that is poignant, I hope that Janava Mata's dedication to service is one that resonates whenever you hear that name also. And so the first example we have of this is that, so the marriage has taken place, and the following day she's serving, she's in the kitchen, and she's cooking, and I'm sure that you've all seen these gigantic pots, these over a meter wide, and these huge paddles that, with sticks that you're stirring, and the steam is coming up. And of course, in those days, according to culture and necessity, it was very common, without exception, that the woman would keep her head covered. And so following in this time period necessity, she also had her head covered, and she was doing her service and her head covering was coming back, and she was, a little bit of tug of war, pulling it back over and trying to serve, and it's slipping, and it's hot, and it's sweat, and it's slipping, and she's pulling, and she's stirring, and she's pulling. And like any of us who have had this experience, whether you're in a female or a male body, we've all utilized head coverings out of necessity. And the annoyance, right? When this thing won't stay on your head and it's serving a purpose. And so what does she do? Well, she doesn't want to have her service affected. And so just sneaks out her forearmed form, and her third and fourth arm take this head covering, and they pull it up onto her head, place it there, and with all of their divine transcendental potency, that head covering isn't moving again. She sneaks her forearm form away and continues to do her service. She didn't exhibit this form to impress, to prove. She wanted nothing more than just to be able to focus on her service. Now, it's interesting that it was, we're so fortunate that this was viewed, and that we can have this pastime passed on, and that we can see this example, because it actually was viewed by many, and her Shakti, her true nature, we got a glimpse at that. So another example of her amazing propensity for service comes when we hear about her serving in the very first Gorda Pranima. And this pastime is beautiful. So it takes place, Lord Chaitanya and his associates have already left the planet, and there's a certain hole in the hearts of the devotees, and this first generation of those who will carry on our disciplic succession, Brahma Madhava Gaudiya Vaishnavism, like the Gora, who will carry on our understanding. So we have still left on the planet, we have Srinivasacharya, and we have Ramachandra. And these two devotees, they go to visit Narottam Das, and they decide that they're going to have this huge festival in Kechori. And Srinivasacharya, he actually hand writes out 15 invitations, and they're sent off to all the major cities, Orissa, and everywhere, every direction, to invite, to say, come here, and we're going to install. They had an installation of 6 different deities, and also celebrate the appearance day of Lord Chaitanya in the very first celebration after his leaving on the his pastimes, his present pastimes, his visible pastimes on the planet, because we're still living these pastimes. They haven't stopped, but even then they were they thought that his visible pastimes had come to a close. However, another dream takes place. Lord Chaitanya appears in a dream to Janava Mata, and he lets her know, I myself am going to appear in this festival. How amazing is that? Just having the disclosure. And who does he disclose this to? But to Janava Mata. And he also appeared in a dream to Ramachandra Kaviraj and let him know, I'm going to appear at this festival. So of course, they've collected all the Vaishnavas that they can. They've sent invitations in every direction. And, the festival starts out with everybody using their special talents. Narottam Das Thakur is conducting amazing Sankirtan. Srinivas Acharya, he is installing not 1 but 6 sets of deities. Maybe many of you have traveled to Vrindavan or Jagannath Puri or Dwarka or Mayapur and seen the likes of Sri Gauranga, Sri Balabi Kanta, Sri Braj Mohana, Sri Radha Kanta, or Sri Radha Raman. The one deity that has been lost, unfortunately, to time would be Sri Krishna, who was lost in some invasions that happened in Bangladesh. However, all 6 of these deities were installed during this festival, and each devotee's talents were employed to their max. Shamananda Pandit was preaching to those who had come, and it said that during this festival that it was such a huge event that not just Vaishnavas were there, the village people were there, the atheists had come. I mean, it was a party, everybody was there. So amongst this party, the deities were installed, and the next day there was huge kirtan, and within these kirtan, Lord Chaitanya himself appeared, and he brought with him all of his associates. Sri Nityananda was there, Sri Advaita, Gadadhar, Haridas, Marari Gupta, Goridas Pandit, Sarup Damodar, all of these personalities, you see, the manifest pastimes, they hadn't closed. And even now, Vaishnavas are still having the appearance of these personalities in their dreams, and Lord Chaitanya is still active, manifesting himself, and we have him on the altar in our temples. And when we serve these personalities, their manifest pastimes are still active. They are just waiting for reciprocation, just waiting to reciprocate. So the part of this festival that I really wanted to emphasize is that on the following day, it's been 3 days, there's been installations, there's been kirtan, Lord Chaitanya himself has appeared. It's said that even the atheists who came just for the party, that when they saw Lord Chaitanya, their hearts were changed. So just in those moments, all those people, all of those jiva souls who have an eternal pastime with the Lord, that eternal pastime was reawakened. And no matter what they thought was their reality, their eyes were open, their hearts were open, and their lives were changed. You know, their path of bhakti was you know, my kids, they play these racing video games sometimes, and there's these strips, and if you hit the strips, you go super fast, you know, and if you're just going on the regular path, you know, you maintain your speed, but when you hit these strips, you can super speed, right? And so I like to think of it like that, you know, it's like super speed, you know, there's these moments, there's these opportunities in life where nothing in our own capacity, in our own little vehicle or in our own little jiva experience could get that level of growth. And yet things happen. And if you're open for the reciprocation, so Janava Mata was there, and the description of how she serves the Vaishnavas is the most amazing. So every person that came to this festival was given housing. Every person that came to this festival was given a personal garland. Their feet were washed. They were attended to. It said that the people who came, they didn't know, like there was no differentiation between those who were the highest, most exalted personalities, the pandits, those who had been doing great levels of service, and those who were just there visiting, those who had not yet exhibited any of their earthly service or pastimes with the Lord, and yet they were treated equally. They didn't know there was no difference. Janava Mata personally cooked. She orchestrated the spice grinders. She orchestrated the prep cooks. She orchestrated every person and was attuned to what they were doing. And then she personally served by her hand each of the people who attended the festival. And then when that was done, she personally served each of the people who had been assisting her in that service. And we're talking about the Lord herself. The Shakti energy of Lord Nityananda, this personality who deserves, I mean, they had an asana there. She was the highest regarded guest. And what did she do? Did she sit on the asana and receive glory and just, you know, no, she served. And why would when she would have the opportunity, you know, if an ununderstanding person was, you know, would you like to go work in a kitchen, watch some dishes, you know, like everywhere we drive, we see kitchens, you know, we see restaurants, you know, and given the choice between going and being a dishwasher in a kitchen in a restaurant, or taking a day and sitting on the throne of, let's say, the Queen of England or something like that, what would you choose? You know, for the average person, it would be a very obvious, I'll take a day on the throne, right? Why would she choose this other? And we have to understand that where the real bliss is, where the real nectar is. And for the devotee, for the personality who is uncovered, when we serve, that's the highest pleasure. You know, that, and she was giving us this example of, you know, where the nectar was, where the pleasure was. And so we can follow in her footsteps, you know, when we see people who are coming to our temple, and we see people who are, you know, just starting their Vaishnava path, we can remember Janava Mata and remember that it was by her non-differentiation, by her offering the same respect that she would offer. You know, if Srila Prabhupada was to walk into the temple, the offering, the respect that we would offer, the service that we would want to offer, the excitement that we would greet that personality with, she's given us the example that is the excitement and the respect and the energy that we should be greeting each other and that we should be greeting our guests. And obviously there's instructions, we're not going to take instruction from anybody. There's levels. If somebody's your equal, if somebody is your if you're more senior, there's common sense. However, this is not what we're talking about. We're not talking that you should go to the new bhakta and say, please instruct me. But the new bhakta, if felt the same love as the sannyasi who visits, then that new bhakta is going to hit that super strip, and they're going to expand, they're going to excel into their devotional life. They're going to see great change in the world. But if they walk in and they're like, oh, you're just where's the incentive? Where's the love? They're not just in anything. Every single one of us, no matter who you are, whether you're the stranger walking on the street, whether you're the dog, whether you're the elephant, every single one of us is an eternal jiva soul with an active relationship with the Supreme Lord. He's active in each of our worlds. He's waiting just as eagerly for every single one of us. That person who has no exposure to Krishna consciousness or God consciousness is just as important to Krishna as your Guru Maharaj. Just as important. And that's what Janava Mata saw, and that's what she acted on. So, Shrimati Jahnava Devi ki jai. So today is another. Now we are acknowledging last Thursday was the appearance day of Janava Mata, but today is the appearance day of Sri Rukmini Devi. And I want to spend the last 20 minutes or so of our time together expounding on another amazing personality. And I do want to also acknowledge that in addition to Janava Mata's appearance day, it was also the appearance day of Sri Sita Devi, the consort of Lord Ram. However, when choosing how to spend our time today, I had a feeling that most of us are aware of the pastimes of Sita Devi and are not bereft of understanding who she is in relationship with the Supreme Lord. So, but I do want to acknowledge her. However, we're going to move into speaking on today is the appearance day. It is on these appearance days, it's like a portal opens up and we can approach these personalities, so much closer, so much more. It's like you may never be invited to somebody's house, but when their birthday comes, they throw a party and guests come whom on any other occasion might never have that opportunity to come in and see that personality's home, be in, whether it's not even, just an ordinary person, and it's like maybe the only time that people have visited some, famous person would be on their birthday. I held a big party, everybody came, right? So in the same non-perverted understanding, when we have these appearance days and disappearance days, it's really the veil is thinned and we can approach these personalities. So Rukmini Devi, wow. So in the last couple of weeks, I've been just trying my best to listen to as many classes and take in as much information as I could about Sri Rukmini Devi in preparation for today. And I was listening to a couple of classes by my Guru Maharaj, Sri Krishna Maharaj. And in one class, he explained that Rukmini is most commonly known for her siblinghood. She is one of 6 children who were the children of King Bijmaka. And it's unique because all of her siblings have the prefix of their name Ruk. So we have Rukmi, Rukmarata, Rukmabahu, Rukmakesh, Rukmamali, and then of course Rukmini. Now those 5 brothers, and of them the most famous would of course be Rukmi, and his name will come up in our story. However, my Guru Maharaj was speaking and he was saying that actually Rukmini was not technically the sibling of Rukmini, that they were more like cousin brothers, and that the cousin siblings, and that in India still, and in Vedic culture, that these siblings would you would be considered a sibling even if you were, a cousin or an expanded cousin. Even in villages, even if you grew up in the same village, you would still be referred to as, my brother, my sister, right? So, and then I listened to another class, and he just referred to her as a sibling, didn't cover that. And so I was left kind of wondering, like, I accepted, and I just kind of filed it back. And so I'm hoping that we can expound a little bit more on that relationship. But first, Rukmini is the consort of Krishna. She's actually the very first wife of Sri Krishna. So Krishna had his manifest pastimes in Vrindavan. We know that Krishna actually never leaves Vrindavan. However, he spends the first, decade and a half of his life there in Vrindavan. And then he travels out in what we refer to as his Vasudev Krishna form. So his unmanifest pastimes remain in Vrindavan. However, he now has this form, and he travels out, and he goes to Mathura, of course, killing King Kamsa, who is the nemesis of the very first half of our Krishna book, bringing all of the childhood demons into play. And then Krishna spends another decade of his life or so battling Jarasundha, the king of Magadha. And this Jarasundha, he has a friend, and his friend is Shishupal. And we've heard this name before. Last time I was speaking, we were talking about Shishupal and his relationship to, I'm gonna check my notes, Salva. They were dear friends. So we've talked about Shishupal a little bit. However, Shishupal plays an active role in this pastime because Shishupal is friends with Rukmini. Now, this whole camp of Jarasundha, Shishupal, and Rukmini, they are not friends with Krishna. They are actually rivals. They are, they, of course, now this is all in Krishna's pastimes. We recognize that these personalities are playing their role. I like, my sons, they like to play. They have, wooden swords, and they're getting older. They're 12 now, but especially when they were younger. And they would play these same pastimes. They would play, I'm the this person, you're that person, and this happens and that happens. And then the next day, they would do the exact same thing. Children do this, right? And I like to kind of think of Krishna in the spiritual world, because these pastimes are eternal. They're always happening again and again and again. It's not just that Krishna had his earthly pastimes once, but we recognize in yuga after yuga after yuga. And in fact, at this very moment, Krishna is manifesting these pastimes again. And so every time that the storyline stays similar, but we do have some variation, and I like to remember, like my children, it's like the storyline stays similar, but maybe one day, that I can't find the sword of whatever, so we'll just use the different wooden weapon, or things shift and change. And so sometimes when we hear these pastimes, you might say, like, oh, I heard that she was born in a golden box, and in this time I heard she was born in a cabbage, and how is it possible? And we have to recognize that both are true, and that we are just hearing two versions of the same pastimes from different yugas that have been given to us. So I like to remember that even though we think of Shishupal and Jarasundha and Rukmini as these personalities who oppose Krishna, that they also, I could see them all up in the spiritual world. Okay, you're gonna, you'll be the bad guy, and like, oh, you play Shishupal, and Krishna's friend is so willing to go down and play out these earthly pastimes, and we recognize this because when he does destroy these personalities, what does he do? They immediately go back to their spiritual world. Why? Because you know, it's no, it's a part of his pastime. They're coming here for a purpose, right? So anyhow, Rukmi, he decides that his sister Rukmini should marry his dear friend Shishupal. Well, Rukmini, she is not interested in this, but did anybody ask Rukmini? Of course not. So, however, her father, King Bhishmaka, he also didn't like this idea, but Rukmini, Rukmini had a lot of pull. He had a lot of pull, and he was able to orchestrate the marriage of his sister. And so we can understand that there was a grand, lots of details being attended to. Well, prior to this, Rukmi already had a seed planted in her heart. We have Narada Muni, our transcendental spaceman. And Narada Muni had previously been coming to the court of King Bhishmaka, and he had been speaking of this great personality, Sri Krishna. And although when Rukmi had heard these stories, he had heard it with like ears that were closed. His attention had been poisoned by his friendship with Shishupal and King Jarasandha, whom Krishna was fighting with. And so when Rukmi heard of Sri Krishna, he was opposed. But when Rukmini heard of Krishna, her heart was softened. Of course, she's the eternal consort, so it reawoken. Now it's interesting to point out that Narada Muni not only was telling Rukmini about Krishna, but he also had visited Krishna and had been telling the glories of Rukmini to Krishna. So Krishna already knew of Rukmini, and Rukmini knew of Krishna. And now this great marriage had been arranged, and Rukmini was in her heart had already given herself to Krishna. So she made a plan. She was like, I cannot be married to Shishupal. In fact, she begun doing great austerities and fasting and prayer and penance. And she had reserved herself that should this marriage to Shishupal be pushed through, that she would continue these penances and give up her life. That she could belong to no one other than Sri Krishna, and that if it wasn't going to happen in this life, that she was completely fine, giving up this life and moving, taking on, this determination in another. So she wrote a letter to Krishna, and it's interesting. Now, I wanted to thank my Shiksha guru, Achyuta Gopi. She has given so much discourse, and just yesterday she actually gave class on Sri Rukmini, and she gave some very, very esoteric details, and which I'm hoping that we can touch on prior to the end of our conversation. And she also helped me understand some points that I hadn't prior known. So she has studied Garga Samhita, and she said that in the Garga Samhita, it's revealed that actually Krishna had been writing letters already to Rukmini. So they had already had some correspondence. So Krishna sends, Rukmini sends a letter with a Brahmin. And one of the most beautiful points that Achyuta Gopi pointed out in her class, and actually that can be found online if you want to listen, I highly recommend it. It's on YouTube. Just Google Achyuta Gopi. It's yesterday's class, and you will not be disappointed. But in this class, I'll give you two little nuggets, and I'll save the rest of it for you to explore. She was talking about how her sister and her were discussing the position of the Brahmin. So the Brahmin was given this letter by Rukmini, and she gave the letter to the Brahmin because she understood that because the Brahmin was peaceful. I'm sorry, because the Brahmin was truthful, and that he could be trusted, that she could trust, him to be sent. And so she sends him to Krishna, and Krishna receives the Brahmin. And this is the part I wanted to touch on, is that when the Brahmin arrives, how does Krishna receive the Brahmin? It's said that first he brings him in, and the Brahmin's been traveling. So, he washes and massages the feet of the Brahmin. And then he brings him food stuff. And he makes sure that he's completely comfortable and that he is at peace. And the thing that Achyuta Gopi was commenting on is that we can be like that Brahmin. Like when we pray for other devotees, when we bring the message of another devotee to Krishna, then we become like that Brahmin. And if we are willing to pray for others, then Krishna becomes endeared to us. And so many times we're seeking that reciprocation, it's like I'm wanting, I'm wanting relationship with the Supreme Lord. And here is, here's an inside secret that if we pray for others, then we will be received by Krishna as the messenger. And here it is that he offered all honor and respect to this messenger. He was willing to massage his feet until he was at peace. So if we're looking for peace in our life, if we're looking for the ability, it's said that when we are peaceful at mind, Krishna has said that it is the basis for us to be equipoised, balanced, generous, to be able to be learned and truthful. And how do we achieve that? Well, we achieve that by serving each other. When we serve each other, when we pray for others, we become endeared to Krishna. And I just thought how beautiful that message is, that when we remember this story of the Brahmin taking Rukmini's message, we can remember that we too, these stories aren't put there for us to put on a shelf and read and have no connection to ourselves. These stories are there so that we can make these connections and we can be inspired. So today, when we're praying, for the mercy of Sri Rukmini, the most enduring thing we can do is pray for each other. Please pray for me. Please pray for our community. Please pray for our country and for the countries of this world. Because all of us are in a time where peace has been stolen from our mind. And so it's given a great opportunity for us to be the messengers and to carry this message to Krishna. And there's nothing more enduring to Krishna than your prayer for another. So once the Brahman is at peace, the letter is read. And in this letter, I was going to read part of it, but I'm going to instead give you the opportunity, because we're running short on time, and I do want to track back and close with a promised understanding from the beginning of our time about Rukmini. So in the Krishna book, we can find Krishna, the Renakora of chapter 52. Within it is this story, and within it is this letter from Sri Rukmini. And if you want to know how to converse with Krishna, what better than to read this conversation from Rukmini? But in it, she's very diplomatic. Rukmini is somewhere around 16 years old. Any of you who have worked with teenagers or are a teenager, the intensity that comes with that point in life where, there's the perspective is short, and everything is intense, and that her whole life is on the line, and she's writing and she's saying, like, I'm putting myself out there, and you might think that this is shameful to like reveal myself, please accept me, I'm in love with you. What girl exposes her heart? But she says, Krishna, I can't be criticized because nobody can criticize you for being so charming. If you hadn't been so charming, my heart wouldn't be captured. So you can't criticize me for exposing my heart, because if you hadn't been so charming, your charmingness isn't shameful. Therefore, my exposure of love isn't shameful. And then she goes back and forth and says, you might think this, but let me tell you that, that this is why I'm telling you these things, and these rebuttals, because she understands, this Krishna, he's a trickster. He enjoys the rasa of a little spice, as it's been said. He enjoys a little rhetoric. He loved the gopis because they didn't just submit. If he didn't show up on time, they were going to leave. If he trespassed in their garden, they were going to tell him about it. This is a very special relationship, and so Rukmini, understanding Krishna's appreciation for this, was in this letter giving, you might be thinking this, but let me, before you have a quip, let me answer that quip, and she comments on his beauty, and she says, the universe is full of those who will give themselves to you, but now is my time. Now is my time. It's my time to be loved by you. And this was the I felt so honored to hear this spoken of yesterday, and to be able to share with you this portion of the pastime where Achyuta Gopi was revealing, like, wait a minute, why, how is it that Rukmini is claiming Krishna, and then Krishna, he comes back and he says, about hearing about all of your qualities, I can't think of anyone that would be better for me than you. And how is it that in this portion of the pastime, Krishna is completely obsessed, completely, he's got eyes only for Rukmini. And what about the gopis? That was the big question. Like, what about the gopis? And so I'm going to share with you a part of this pastime that I had never heard. And I'm so grateful for Her Grace Achyuta Gopi expounding on it. So she was speaking about how Rupa Goswami has told us that during Krishna's unmanifest pastime, after he's left, the gopis, they go insane. Their life was completely, all they lived for was his routine. At this point, I get to see him here. Which way are they going? I'll make sure to go to that well so I can see the boys coming back, right? So once he left, we see this pastime of Lord Chaitanya and his insane love for Krishna. And this was manifest by Radharani. And it said that Radharani, at one point, seeing Krishna behind a blue lotus in the Yamuna, enters the Yamuna with Vishaka, and she actually disappears. And it's not just her that disappears. One by one, each of the gopis, they have this disappearance. And so Krishna, he hears about, he inquires and he hears about his gopis, and he's told all the gopis have disappeared. They've disappeared. They've become unmanifest. And it said that Krishna had a torrential downpour of tears when he hears about this. But then he's told, well, all except one. Chandravali. Chandravali now is a cousin sister of Radhika. She's also kind of a rival gopi, and we don't hear a lot about her because in our sampradaya, we focus on, Srimati Radhika and her consorts, and so, or her associates, pardon me. And so, but Chandravali is the last gopi. and something unique happens to her. She actually goes into a state of amnesia, and she's whisked away, and she's given. The divine voice declares that her life should be spent as the child of King Bijmaka, and that she should be called Rukmini. And so we understand that this lecture that I heard from my spiritual master, where he said, actually, Rukmi and Rukmini aren't technically blood brother and sister. We can now understand from the writings of Sri Rupa Goswami that this last gopi is actually Rukmini. And that when Krishna is told about Rukmini, she is his last connection to Vraj, and that he is determined to be with her. So, spoiler alert, Rukmini is very diplomatic. She, in her letter, gives Krishna all of the information he needs to safely acquire her from her wedding day by usurping her when she is outside of the city and none of her family is with her and will be harmed. And Krishna then implements this plan that she has created, which is a great example for us. Today we're really focusing on the idea of service and what it means to serve each other. And we have the example of Janava Mata, determination in service, and her equal poised to serve each other. And we have the example of the Brahman bringing our prayers and how we can follow in that footstep of service. And we have this example of Rukmini, where she doesn't just say, I want, Krishna, I should be with you, but that instead she approaches him with fixed determination. And last time I was speaking, I was talking about distress and how, distress is natural and that it gives us the impetus to think of Krishna. But we also have the example of just being fixed and steady and not waiting for somebody else to implement that steadiness in our life, but to say, I have a plan, Krishna. I know how we can be together, and understanding that his determination Krishna is absolutely as determined to be with you, with me, with Rukmini, and with every jiva on this planet, because there's nobody else that can fulfill the need that Krishna has. The only need that he has that he cannot fulfill himself is that of relationship. And each of us fulfill a unique role of relationship with him that no other jiva can fulfill. And so Rukmini gives us the example of fixed determination and coming to Krishna with a plan, and Krishna in turn, as soon as the Brahman finished reading the letter, he says, let's go together right now. Yoke my horses. I will take you with me. And they entered the city together. It's not that he just sent the Brahman ahead. He was immediately ready to reciprocate, and he's immediately ready to reciprocate with you. So write those letters to Krishna, say those prayers, have those conversations, serve each other, inspire your friends, inspire your family, pray for your family, and Krishna is going to run to you. Krishna doesn't, like we were talking about the speed strips. Krishna's path is all speed strips. He doesn't have the slow-mo jiva speed. He is eternally in fast forward, just waiting to reciprocate with you. So Shri Janava Mata ki jai, Shri Rukmini Devi ki jai, Krishna Chandra Bhagavan ki jai, Vaishnav Thakur ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Nitai Sachinandana ki jai. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak on these two amazing personalities. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. I love your enthusiasm and energy in presenting the lecture. Those of us that lack the energy get it from you. Thank you very much. When I was listening to your lecture, I was reminded of that word that devotees use. Every word is a song. Every step is a dance in the spiritual world, and it can be so in material world as well. I really like the letter that you pointed out from Rukmini Mataji, Rukmini Devi, especially how she was non-envious of Lord Krishna when she says, I know you're the husband of the goddess of fortune, but I would also like to be your wife.
Yes, that's a great point.
That wouldn't happen, but yes. Thank you for speaking about these great personalities. I was remember Vaisheshika Prabhu says that when appreciation, he's quoting Voltaire, that appreciating somebody's good qualities brings those qualities into your own heart. So thank you very much. Other devotees, if you want to comment, and then we can have Arthik, or we can see Arthik of Lord Nrsimha, Lord Shishintai Sachinandan, and I think Shrikar is singing the first Arthik, and then Ram Gopal will do the Nrsimha Day prayers. Thank you. I'll stop.
Mataji, very nice lecture. Very, very nice. You have spoken from your heart. So thank you so much for sharing all these details. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Okay, any other comments? If not, we'll transition. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you. Please give us your association so we can get such enthusiasm and feed off of each other. So, thank you. Nathalas Prabhu, will we be seeing? Yes, Sri Shinitai Sachinandan Dev Ki Jai. Please remember that there's Lord Nrsimha Deva Parents' Day on Tuesday, celebration at temple at 6:30. Okay, thank you. Today, darshan and to-go prasadam is available from 1 to 2:30. See you there. Hare Krishna. Shrikar and then Ram Gopal.
Yeah. Hare. Can you? Okay. Yeah. Srimate Go Nirvishesha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Saido Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Sadi go Vrinda Shri Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Advaita Gadadhara Srivasa Bhakta Brunda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Gadadhara Srivasa Bhakta Vrinda Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama, Rama Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram Ram Ram, Krishna Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare, Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Sachinandana Nita, Nita Sachinandana, Nita Sachinandana, Nita Sachinandana, Hari Nita Nita Gora Jaya Gora Hari Jaya Jaya Nita Chandra Chandra Jaya Gora Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya 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 Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya 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 Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya 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 Prabhupada Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Gurudev. Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Gurudev. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur. Thank you so much, Sri Krishna.
Hey, Isha, thank you so much. Srikar, thanks so much, Radha, for singing very beautifully. Raman and Gopal would like to sing Nasima Aarti. Suti.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
वर्चुअल बैकग्राउंड हटा लो. Here, पूछो.
Is the audio good, Prabhuji? Am I audible, Prabhuji?
Yes, you are.
Okay. No. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Praladaladanayine. Hiranya Kashipu Vakshaha. Hiranya Shilatanka Nathalaye. Shilatanka Nathalaye. To Narsimo Parato Narsimo. To Narsimo Parato Narsimo. Yato Yato Yamitato Narsimo. Yato Yato Yamitato Narsimo. Bahir Narsimo Hridaye Narsimo. Bahir Narsimo Hridaye Narsimo. Narasimhamadim Sharanam Prapadena. Narasimhamadim Sharanam Prapade. Tavakara Kamalavade. Nakham Adbhuta Shringa. Nalita Hiranyakashipu. Tanu Bringa Keshavadita Narahari Rupa. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Tava Kara Kamala Vare. Nakham Adbhuta Shringa. Dalita Hiranyakashipu. Tanu Bringa Keshavadita Narahari Rupa. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Avakara Kamala Vare. Nakham Adbhuta Shringa. Dalita Hiranyakashipu. Tanu Bringa Keshavachita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Tava Kara Kamalavane Natham Adbhuta Shringa Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringa Keshavadika Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jaya Narsimha Dev 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 Narsimha Dev Jaya Narsimha Dev Jaya Narsimha Dev Jaya Prahlad Maharaj 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev विघ्न विनाशक लक्ष्मी नरसिंह भगवान की जय राज प्रहलाद महाराज की जय गुरु श्री प्रभुपाद की जय।
हरि हरि बोलो।